The streets of Belgrade were eerily silent at 3 a.m. Mark tightened his jacket, his breath visible in the cold night air. He had stayed out late with friends and was now walking home alone through the dimly lit streets. Then he saw her, a woman, in a long red dress, standing in the middle of the road under a flickering streetlight. She swayed to an invisible rhythm, her arms moving in unnatural, jerky motions. Mark slowed his pace. His heart pounded. Something about her was wrong. Then, without warning, she stopped. Her head snapped toward him, her face hidden under messy black hair. A twisted grin stretched across her pale lips. Mark's breath hitched. The woman dropped into a crouch and then charged straight at him. Mark turned and ran, but the sound of her footsteps was getting closer. Chapter 1. The encounter. Mark sprinted through the empty streets, his lungs burning, his heart hammering like a drum. Behind him, the rhythmic clacking of her heels echoed against the pavement. He dared to look back. She was still there. Her movements were unnatural, almost inhuman. She didn't run like a normal person. Instead, she lunged forward in erratic, snapping motions, her arms flailing in a grotesque mimicry of dance. Mark veered into a narrow alley, hoping to lose her. The shadows swallowed him as he pressed against a brick wall, trying to silence his ragged breathing. Silence. Was she gone? He peeked around the corner. The street was empty. His body trembled as he pulled out his phone to call someone. Anyone. But before he could dial, a soft humming sound filled the alley. His blood ran cold. He turned around. She was right there, standing in the alley, swaying, her head tilted to the side. Then she smiled. Mark didn't think. He just ran. Chapter 2. The warning. The next morning, Mark sat in his apartment staring blankly at his coffee. His best friend, Ivan, sat across from him, frowning. "You look like hell, man." Mark rubbed his temples. "I saw something last night." Ivan chuckled. "What, a ghost?" Mark shook his head. "No, a woman. She was dancing in the street, but it was wrong. She chased me." Ivan's face lost its color. Mark noticed. "What? Do you know something?" Ivan hesitated, then whispered. "You've heard the stories, haven't you?" Mark's stomach twisted. "They say there's a woman in red. She appears at 3 a.m. If you watch her for too long, she notices you. And if she chases you, she never stops." Mark swallowed hard. "That's just a myth." Ivan's expression darkened. "Tell that to the ones who disappeared." Chapter 3. The footsteps at night. That night, Mark locked every door and window. He told himself it was just paranoia. Then, at exactly 3 a.m., a sound made his blood freeze. Tap, 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 footsteps, coming from the hallway outside his apartment. He grabbed a knife from the kitchen, his breath shallow. Slowly, he approached the door. The footsteps stopped. Silence stretched on. His fingers trembled as he looked through the peephole. At first, he saw nothing. Then, suddenly, a red dress moved past the peephole. His stomach lurched, a slow, rhythmic humming came from the other side of the door. Then, a knock, soft at first, then harder, then pounding. Mark stumbled back, his heart racing. The pounding stopped. Then, through the door, in a voice barely above a whisper, "Let me in." Chapter 4. Research. Mark didn't sleep. By sunrise, he was searching the internet for anything about the Serbian Dancing Lady. He found old newspaper articles, stories about people disappearing after encountering a woman in red. Some claimed she was a spirit. Others believed she was something much worse. One forum post caught his attention. "If she chases you, never stop running. If she finds your home, never answer the door. And whatever you do, never let her in." Mark's hands trembled. She knew where he lived. He had to find a way to stop her. Chapter 5. The mark of the cursed. Over the next few days, Mark's paranoia grew. He started seeing her everywhere. On the subway, standing still while others walked past. At the grocery store, watching him from the aisles. Even in his apartment window, staring up from the street below. Then, one night, he woke up to find red. Smudges on his apartment door, handprints. His stomach churned. She had been inside the building. He wasn't just being followed, he was marked. Chapter 6. The trap mark couldn't live like this. He had to end it. With Ivan's help, he devised a plan. The next night, at exactly 3 a.m., he stood outside, waiting, and she appeared. The dancing lady, swaying under the streetlight, her grin wider than ever. Mark didn't run. Instead, he whispered, "Come and get me." She charged at him, her limbs snapping unnaturally. But this time, Mark was ready. He led her to an abandoned factory where Ivan had set a trap. A circle of salt and burning sage surrounded the area, an old Serbian cleansing ritual. The moment she crossed into the trap, she screeched, the air rippled, her body twisted in agony, and then she vanished. Mark collapsed, shaking. It was over, or so he thought. Chapter 7. The Final Horror. Climax. Days passed. Mark started to feel normal again, until one night. At 3 a.m., his phone buzzed, a video message. With trembling hands, he pressed play. It was security footage from outside his apartment. The screen flickered, then showed something impossible. A woman in red, standing in the hallway, right outside his door. As the video ended, his blood turned ice cold, because from the other side of his apartment, a soft humming began. The end. Final thoughts. This version has a terrifying hook at the start, 7 detailed chapters with suspense and horror, a strong climax with an intense ending. This keeps the reader engaged and unsettled. Let me know if you need any adjustments.